Welcome, everybody. It's time to start cruising into a better financial future with your host, Kim Cruz. Hey, everybody. It's time to go cruising into a better financial future with your host, Kim Cruz.
Thanks, Adam. I am Kim Cruz. I'm a wife, a mom, daughter, sister, friend, entrepreneur, and business owner of Cruz Credit Consulting, but not necessarily in that order. I have over 30 years experience in corporate America and a passion for helping people succeed in all areas of life. And I'm joined by my good friend, Adam Strum, who is actually the brains behind this production. Adam?
Hey, that would be me, I guess. This is Adam Strum. I am the co owner of USFA, which you can see behind me, US Financial Alliance. I owned Financial Rescuers, Debt Relief for You Inc., and several other companies over the years. And it's my passion to make sure people understand finance, understand how to get out of wage slavery, and how to move forward with their lives. So I'll pass it back to you, Kim, because I can't wait to talk about our guest today.
Adam, I am so excited to be back on schedule. Life happens, life gets in the way, other things, I know. So I am super excited to be back on the road, having
Back
guests with
in
us.
the saddle
Yeah,
again.
there you go, back in the saddle. That's the word I was looking for. And to have a phenomenal guest today. I am so excited to speak to him. And I'm going to let you do the introductions because I know you're just as excited as I
Now,
am.
our guest today has a different background than all of our other guests that we've had. This is a man who started working young in life and worked his way up, went to school, did both the experience and the book smart thing. And he worked in the medical field for a lot of years. And he was what we would call a medical efficiency expert. So his job was going into hospitals, other medical clinics, things of that nature, and just sort of making sure things were being done right. Except he ran into a brick wall, and we'll talk about that during the show. And eventually he decided, his skills were better used in a franchise called Schooley Mitchell. And I doubt most of our viewers have ever heard of this organization, but they're an amazing organization because, Kim, Schooley Mitchell will come into your business and they will look over everything you're spending and doing to make sure that you are getting the best deal with each of your vendors and suppliers, et cetera, et cetera. And you know how much they're going to charge you, Kim?
How much? That sounds pretty expensive. What?
They are not charging you anything unless they save you money.
That is
So
amazing.
unless they're able to cut your expenses, they don't get paid for all that work. That's how confident the Schooley Mitchell franchise is that they can save a business money. They don't get paid unless they do. They get paid a percentage of the savings that they save you, whether it be on your credit card processing, whether it be on your utility bills or other expenses. And they don't look at your employees as an expense because that is on you. That is not something they look at. So they're not the movie efficiency experts who come in and say, just fire everybody and now you have $1 million. No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way. They come in and actually look with your accounting team at your books to see where you're overspending. And they make their money by helping you not overspend anymore. So without further ado, I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about it himself because we're going to give him a few minutes to give his full background to everybody. But I am very pleased to have with us today Mr. Drew Deraney. Hey, Drew.
Adam, Kim, thank you so much.
Welcome.
I'm excited. I've been watching all your shows on the YouTube channel, and now I get a chance to be here. This is great. Thank
Oh,
you.
we love having you. You're from my neck of the woods, somebody who sounds like me. You're from New
Yes.
Jersey. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We both
I was
say
born in
forget about.
Brooklyn. I was born
There
in
you
Brooklyn,
go.
so
We
we're
we both
brothers
we
somehow.
both
Yeah,
say forget about it in one
that's
word.
right. Forget about it.
Drew,
And
please.
Drew, what you do is right up our alley. So this is awesome. Tell us more.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm thrilled to be where I am now because after helping patients and families by the bedside, and the staff really help each other out, I'm helping businesses really put their hard-earned money back into their budget. Too often I see vendors are charging merchants something and we pay it because we don't know any better, right? They're the experts. And the beautiful thing about what I'm able to do now with Schooley Mitchell as my team is we have a 23,000 client, actually back up to 24,000 now, client database. So these are
Nice.
deals that we've negotiated across North America. We have 200 offices, each individually owned and operated, but our back office is the Schooley Mitchell headquarters, which has 100 full-time people there. Anywhere from all the heavy lifting, the cost analysis, the sales, the content marketing. I mean, they're absolutely fabulous. And we'll sit down with our clients. We'll look at their invoices, their contracts, any of their agreements amongst the 8 cost categories that we specialize in. And on average, we're saving close to 30% on average per client, per cost category,
That's
on their
1/3.
expenses. It's 1/3, and 1/3 to a 1 employee company, and up all the way up to 1,000 employees. 30% is a lot for no matter how big or small the company is.
Yep.
And why not put that back in your budget instead of overspending with the vendors?
Mhm.
So, you know, it's one of those injustices that I always fought for in the healthcare industry, that, you know, you work hard for your money, whether you're a business or individual, and you should keep it in the family.
Right.
I couldn't agree with that more. In fact, I fight for that all the time.
Mhm.
I think that we're forced to spend on things we shouldn't be, and we're not forced to spend on things we should be.
Absolutely.
And there are lots of good examples of that. But
Mhm.
with that being said, we had an old format, and Kim and I have made some changes because we find that we have a better conversation with the guest. So instead of questions from viewers, although we have tons of those in our archive, we're just going to have a conversation today about what you went through, why you left the medical world, because I think that that's a fascinating story. And you and I chatted about it off screen. And then, you know, you'll walk us through a typical Schooley Mitchell evaluation.
Mhm.
I
Absolutely.
think that's the best way to get people to understand why they should give you a call if their
Mhm.
business thinks they're spending too much.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
agree. Yep.
All right. So Kim and I are going to do the questions today instead of the guests.
That's
All
fair.
right. Kim, do you want to go first, or you want me to ask the first question?
Go ahead and ask the first question, because I want to get into Drew himself first, and then kind of segue into the business aspect of it.
Well, okay. So I'll ask the first question, which is related to Drew the person, because Kim just said, let's start by getting to know Drew better. Now, here are some of the things I know, but we're going to expand on it. I know that Drew has been married, that Drew does have children, that Drew cares more about his children than himself. I know this for a fact because we had a long conversation about it. I also know that he is an excellent time manager. And I think that comes from his work with hospitals, because time management in hospitals is the most important thing in the world, life and death,
Crucial.
to be honest.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your family, Drew.
Family, geez. I mean, obviously, I start with the present because I got 3 awesome children, and you know, regardless of being divorced, I would not change anything that happened, because you know, I spoke about this, Adam. You change 1 millisecond of your life, I don't end up here talking with you guys. And you got to grab the silver lining, the good stuff that happens out of the challenging stuff. And my 3 kids, I've Matthew's 19, Nicholas is 17, and Emma's 15. They are 3/4 of my heart, and I will, to a fault, do anything I can do for them. And they know it. They know I'm always going to be there for them. So first and foremost, what I do, I do partially for myself, but for the most part, it's really for my kids, because I'm a firm believer in children will do as they see. So as any way I behave, they are going to emulate the behavior that I put out there. And am I perfect? Absolutely not. I made so many mistakes. And then, why did you do that? Well, Dad, I saw you do it. And I said, okay, I shouldn't have done that, you know?
Perfect as a concept. People have to learn that.
Absolutely.
Perfect as a
Absolutely.
concept. It's subjective.
Absolutely. I knew I loved children from the beginning, because when I was in high school, I went to Bergen Catholic High School in Oradell, New Jersey, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor. So I took the classes, the anatomy and physiology, all the classes in high school, because it was a prep school for college. And when I graduated, I knew I wanted something to do with healthcare, but I really wasn't sure which one. So I was thinking pediatrician. So anyway, I went to Fairfield University in Connecticut for college, and I was able there to not select a major. I was able to do an undeclared major with a pre-med concentration, because that way it enabled me to take a few different classes to see what I really liked. Because, you know, the way the whole education is right now with higher education, we're all programmed to do 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, and then, you know, you're supposed to wake up in the morning and know what you want to do with your life. No, so I tried to find, I mean, I did the regular 4 years high school, 4 years college, but I found a way. Fairfield enabled us to be able to not have to pick a major until sophomore year. So when it came to sophomore year, I chose psychology as my major with a pre-med concentration, because I'm fascinated by human behavior. I'm fascinated that you could have, you know, 3 children in the same family with the same parents and be 3 completely different human beings. You know, the DNA and all that stuff aside, but the personalities, is it nature? Is it nurture? Like, how does that happen? How does the brain function differently? Each person, even if it's the same thing that happens, we all react differently. Always fascinated me. I also love the science behind things, the science behind decisions, the science behind medicine, the science behind why we say what we do, the cognitive aspect. So that's really what I wanted to do. That's all I knew I wanted to do, something to do with those things. In the end, I ended up dropping the pre-med concentration because I kind of was roommates and housemates with people who like to go out on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights. And so then I would see, we go through the dorm, and all along the wall studying are all the pre-med people. So I had a big decision to make, guys, you know, that crossroads in life. Do I want to sit against the wall, or do I want to go out? I'm supposed to go out. So like physics killed me. Physics was one. I did well in bio, well in chemistry. Physics blew me out of the water. That was my excuse, and I'll live. So I just stuck with the psychology piece, and I kind of veered towards the social psychology aspect because of the human and entity. But you can never separate the social from the cognitive. So when I was graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, and I remember talking to my favorite professor, is Dr. Mark Warden. He has since passed, unfortunately. He was one of my mentors. He brought me to lunch, and I had just graduated, and he had said, "Drew, do you know what you want to do after this?" I said, I really don't. He said, "Look, we have a program here at Fairfield that for the psychology majors, we have a 2-year program. We could hire you full time." I think the salary then was $20,000 back in 1991. I was ecstatic. I became the full-time, and I became the psychology laboratory supervisor for the psychology department. So I was able to student teach in social psychology. I was responsible for taking care of the laboratory, where they had the laboratory animals, the rats, where we would do our research. Yeah,
I love those white rats. They're so calm.
They're amazing. They teach us a lot.
No.
So yeah, all right. So I saw Kim's reaction there, and I can tell with body language I will get off that topic. I will say that I have 2 publications. I did one research study with a social psychologist. So we did it on ironically, the effects of divorce on adolescents.
That is a little ironic. Yes.
It was a retrospective study utilizing Yale University students of divorce. And that's where, and we had a poster presentation I was published on. And then the cognitive end, I did research with the neuroscience psychology professor. We did it on the effects of, if you have a lesion on your brain, there's a medication that was there at the time. I forget what it's called, but the effects of that type of medication on lesions and how it affects short-term memory. Anyway, I had it's an abstract publication for that. So I love that aspect of it. So when I was sitting with Dr. Warden, he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I love human behavior and I love healthcare." And he said, "You ever thought about healthcare administration?" And I was like, I'm thinking, hospitals, just 4 walls and doctors and nurses, right?
Oh
not
no.
realizing that it's set up like a
Oh,
business, you know?
yep. It's a
Yep,
corporation. Don't kid yourself.
absolutely.
It really is. So he suggested that I do a little research, and I did, and I saw anywhere from procurement in the purchasing department where you can buy the capital equipment, the supplies, service agreements, to inventory control, a variety of different. So what I ended up doing, he suggested I write a letter and send it to the hospital. So as much as I love and respect human resource people, I sent it right to the presidents of each of those hospitals. And what's really funny is back then we didn't have Google. So I'm going through newspapers and phone calls and, you know, the
The
yellow pages.
classified
Oh my
ads.
gosh. But I know what I was really looking for is to find the names
The
of the
names of,
presidents for each of
mm-hmm,
those hospitals. I looked in
mm-hmm,
Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. And I ended up getting offered a full-time job at Hackensack University Medical Center. It was Hackensack Hospital at the time. It's now phenomenal. It was good then too. I went in as a buyer, and
okay,
initially I was doing the service agreements on the equipment. All right, negotiating that, and that you could easily get fooled by the sales reps on what you need to cover within a service agreement, right? And as much as I tried to learn, I didn't have the bandwidth or the people, so I had to just kind of learn on trial and error, really. And so, you know, that's where I always tell my kids it's okay to make mistakes, learn from them, and don't repeat them, because I made a lot. And then I ended up doing the capital equipment. So I'm there negotiating MRIs and CAT scans, but really learning the aspects of negotiation. I took a couple classes on negotiation, and I also would really build relationships with the sales rep and say, hey, listen, I know you can tell me anything and I may believe it. Can we just have a call where you explain to me what part of the body this thing does and how it works, and what aspects there are of this piece of machinery?
Oh
So
my gosh.
I would learn from the reps, and then I would go to the doctors and nurses and I would say, okay, there's this piece of equipment. The sales rep tells me of all these bells and whistles things. What do you need for this thing to do for your patients? And what do I have to make sure we get on this piece of equipment and in the service agreement? So it's what you need, not what the rep wants. And so that was and I did, to this day, that's how I work. I learned from both sides. So I have a knowledge. I can tell you, I can have a conversation. I can have the data tell a story.
Okay,
So
so Drew, I'm just going to let you know I teach negotiation.
you
It's
do.
I do debt negotiation literally every day with banks, which is not unsimilar. And the key, and let's see if you agree with this.
Yeah.
What you learn through your classes on negotiation and studying it is the most important part of a negotiation is know what the person you're going to negotiate with, their goal is. Because if you know their goal, it's very easy to help them reach your goal.
Absolutely. And Adam, I use that now, because with my clients, I want to know what their pain points are. You know,
exactly,
Exactly.
and
right.
I even use this in the hospital. I would talk to doctors and nurses, and what keeps you up at night?
Mhm.
And you would think it's the big things, and it would be the little things. And the little things, if you can fix that in a healthcare organization, you go for it, because 90% of medical errors occur because of poor communication.
Mhm.
So then what's the root cause? Okay, it's communication. Why do we have communication breakdown? And that's how I go, you know, because it's all about communication. So, you know, I was at Hackensack for 6 years. Half of those years was in the purchasing department. I also was end up asked to be the liaison between materials management and the construction department. So I got to be the person who knew what new programs and what new buildings we were going to be doing. And I was in those discussions, and I was responsible for procuring the equipment, but also planning and staging it, the whole logistics of it, you know, because I would know the right time to buy something because of the deals going on. And then I would have to make sure there was a place to keep that thing secure, or pay a little extra money to have the company secure it, even though we bought it. Learned a ton by doing that. And then I got a call from the director of the operating room, and Terry was a nurse, and she said, Drew, how would you like to be the first non-nurse to be the OR support services manager? And I'm like, really? That'd be so cool. So I traded in the jacket and tie for scrubs. The only regret is those damn drawstrings. Can I say damn on you? Can I say damn on YouTube?
Yeah,
The
damn
darn
is allowed.
drawstrings. Oh
Damn is
my gosh,
allowed.
the drawstrings. then you don't realize that you're putting on these pounds, and when you put real pants on, anyway, that's that's another story. But in the operating room, I had the materials management people reporting to me, and I never wanted to be the person who, okay, says do that. Yeah, I can delegate, but I also had the equipment technicians and all the environmental service aides, the people who sterilize the OR in between cases. Probably the most important thing next to an anesthesiologist for us.
I don't think people know what goes into it. It's almost like a hazmat team coming in after a
Oh my
surgery.
gosh.
You're
I mean,
right.
there's this, you need to have wet time for whatever where you're putting down. There has to be there's an ideal amount of time in between cases that you want to turn over the room. So you have to go fast, yet you have to cover everything. So I made it a point, the best way for me to learn, I'm a visual learner. So I went in and I masked up and gowned up, and I asked my staff, teach me how to clean an OR. I mean, we had protocol, but I can read it. But I read the stuff, I understood, and I watched, and then I did. And by doing that, that helps you make decisions down the road, because you have to remember who really needs you to make the right decisions, because every time you make a decision, there's unintended consequences. So if you don't address the people from the beginning and the whole process, you're going to have very poor unintended consequences. I'd rather be prepared.
I don't think people realize just how much goes into medicine, just how much goes into the
They don't
delivery
think about it.
of
No,
They
medicine.
don't.
it's not thought of. And I've had 3 surgeries in the last 6 years, and I've gone into the OR room fully aware of what's going on, knowing that it's pristine and cleaned. But you're absolutely right. I mean, a light bulb just went on in my head that had to be thoroughly scrubbed and cleaned prior to me getting in there, and when I went out of there. So you're right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to be lighthearted. I'm going to be lighthearted and get us all to laugh a little, because
You always
Drew
do.
needs to smile.
You always do.
This is a true story, though. This is not kidding. One of my last 2 surgeries was a major sinus surgery where they had to poke 4 holes into my sinuses because they weren't draining. And the surgery just happened to be on October 30th. And this was in the 90s. All right. And so my wife was working, so she couldn't come with me, but I had to bring someone because it was an outpatient surgical procedure, which meant that later that day I was going to be sent home, but I will have been under anesthesia. They don't want you driving the same day you have anesthesia.
Right.
You know this to be true, Drew. So my mother-in-law, sweetheart that she was, may she rest in peace, came with me. She went down to the waiting room. She's gone. I'm in the gurney wearing the damn thing that you talked about earlier. And I'm just laying there, and I'm not even in the OR yet, so no anesthesia. I'm just nervous as heck because I know they're going in with a drill into my nose to drill holes. And as they wheel me down the hall at the nurse's station, there's a TV there. And do you know what they had on this TV? Halloween, the movie. So they're wheeling me toward the OR, and I'm hearing the Halloween theme music as I'm going down the hall. I'm like, I'm not going to survive this. I'm going to be dead by day's end.
They didn't time the anesthesia well enough that they could knock you out before you hear the music.
Luckily they did. It was successful, although I had to have 2 more surgeries because sinuses are holes. People may not know this. Sinuses are holes. You can't fix them. You can only temporarily fix them. So for the rest of my life, I'm going to have things done. But now we have procedures that are less invasive. Back then we didn't. But still, there is no worse feeling than hearing the Halloween theme music as you're going down the hall toward the big OR doors, which were swinging doors back then.
Yep, absolutely.
Then the next thing they say is, we're going to put this mask on you, count backwards from 100, and you don't remember hitting 97.
No, not at all. And then you wake up and they say, Adam, we're all done. You awake?
Yeah. Then they show you a mirror and you've got tape all over your face. You look like something from The Mummy's Revenge. But yeah, I thought that would make everybody smile a little bit. There is no worse scenario in my mind than hearing that theme music as you're being rolled against your will toward the operating room for a procedure that you're scared blankless about.
Yeah. See, that's near and dear to my heart, because towards the end of my career, and I'll get to that, I went patient experience. So what experience do you want your patient to have? And that would be the first thing we nix out. What are we going to have on the TV screens? Do we have them off, or do we have them on with educational material for the patients? So yeah, good stuff.
Drew, I have to tell you, I know not even halfway through your story, but it's absolutely remarkable how you have made yourself an asset to those companies that you work with or those departments that you work with.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. It sounds like you made a niche for yourself and you did very well with it.
Yeah, and I do miss the healthcare field. I miss the people, the middle people, the middle management and lower.
Yeah, I
because-
can't wait. I want to get to the reason why, although you missed
Yeah,
the
all
people
right,
and the job. The
okay,
job was cool too, but there was
Yeah.
something you ran into, and it's near and dear to my heart. We're going to discuss this.
yeah,
Okay, you ran
Yeah.
into a problem that cannot be fixed in the current climate.
right. Well, I don't know if it was the communication piece, but I can tell you, I ended up kind of burning out. Well, one lesson I definitely learned is that when you're working in an operating room, you learn of what true emergencies are versus human created emergencies.
Mhm.
Because when I would hear patients on the table, we need this, that to me is real because that's palpable. You get a visceral reaction. That's why now when someone says it's emergency and I'll say patient dying on the table, well, no. And what's the emergency, And I can at least relate to that, I ended up burning out because it was a 24/7 operation. I had people working overnight and everything. I was 29 years old with a manager's
Wow.
position in an OR of a huge hospital. I didn't realize how good I had it, but I wasn't emotionally able to handle that stress. So I ended up working for a pharmaceutical company. I worked for Merck for a year.
Okay.
But while I was at Hackensack, they paid for my master's in my MBA in healthcare administration.
Good for you.
So I had my MBA, and I ended up going to Merck for a year. I wanted to go into management, but they had a rule where you had to be a salesperson for 2 years before, so I figured I could suck it up. And so I leave I leave healthcare behind, and I figured in the middle of training at Merck when they changed the rules. It now had to be like 3 or 4 years in sales to go into management. And I was like, I don't think I can last that long because I ended up feeling like I was a glorified caterer. I remember once, I'm in training and I love the training piece because I was learning the science behind the Merck's cardiovascular drugs and how the medications work in the body. That was my thing. I love that. And then I figured when I can go out and talk to doctors and about their prescribing habits, I'm thinking I can book appointments, right? No, it's all about cold calling. And I remember one doctor telling me, if you bring lunch for the staff on such and such a date, I'd be happy to speak with you.
Yep.
So who schleps in with like this big thing for I don't know how many employees, boom, and I'm talking to the staff, and then I say, hey, I'm here to see Dr. So-and-so. Oh, he's off today. Oh,
But they
that's
got
a
fed
shame.
lunch, right? They got fed
Now,
lunch.
being a pharmaceutical rep
Yep.
is no fun because you have to
No.
violate all kinds of ethical
Yeah,
points.
I really ended up not being for me. So after a year, I figured, I was telling Adam this, that you think about working in 4 different quadrants. I started out in higher education, right? So that was not for profit, right? Non-healthcare.
Mhm.
And then I went to the hospital, Hackensack, right? So that's now the not-for-profit healthcare. So I hit both the not-for-profit sector. And then Merck, right? That's your healthcare for-profit.
Or profit.
So what's the 4th quadrant? Non-healthcare, for-profit. So I ended up being recruited to work for a startup telecommunications company. I ended up being, so no more healthcare. I was the operations coordinator. So I was responsible for the inventory control, which I learned that stuff obviously when I was at the hospital.
Right.
The negotiating with the sales, because we had these big satellites. You're talking about when broadband wireless was just starting back in 2000, right before September 11th, 2001.
I was at Verizon at that time, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I was responsible for not only the warehouse and taking the stuff in and warehousing it, but also shipping stuff to our clients, our customers. So I learned about the shipping thing, that there's so much leeway in shipping. You could it's supposed to be on the weight.
That's Kim's field of expertise.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the weight of the package, the size of it, and the location to determine. That's like the algorithm, right? I was allowed to charge whatever I want. You figure the satellites were like $300,000, all this money, right? So the whole purchase order would be over $1 million, and the shipping, I was able to mark it up whatever I wanted to. And it gets paid for, which is
whatever the
With no
market would
questions
bear.
asked.
Right.
Right.
Whatever the
yeah.
market would bear with no questions asked. Yep.
Yeah. And so fast forward to now, that's one of the 8 cost categories Schooley Mitchell does is shipping. I know that people are overspending, you know.
Mhm.
Hell, I was the cause of some of that. So it was, but that was a cool, I got to see the for-profit sector. We were not publicly traded at that time. We went public while I was there on NASDAQ, and the company's still there now. I was the 13th person hired, and at person 37, we're growing. The market got saturated. Too many suppliers, not enough buyers, and layoffs started to happen. So I get laid off in the second
That's my
round.
fault, by the way.
Well, yeah,
I
why'd
want
you
you
do
to know
that to
that-
me?
Well, it wasn't my decision, but it's partially my fault. You know that the big carriers like Verizon, we all got together to crush these RCN and smaller companies that were trying to take too big a piece of our core business. And that's what ended up happening was we strangled you guys out of the field.
Well, I forgot to send you my thank you card. So
Hey, it got
Not
you where you
getting
are now, right?
actually, I should send it to you now because
Yes,
it
that's
worked
what
out
I'm
okay.
saying. It's where
Yeah.
it's what got you to where you are now.
And
Yeah.
my background is
Yeah.
shipping and telecommunications. That
All
was
right. So yeah.
half
So
of
you
it at
understand.
UPS. That's where I
Yeah.
grew up, and
Yeah.
then AT&T Wireless and Charter Communications.
All right.
So,
you
Drew,
know
I have to
exactly what I'm
say,
talking about.
what
Yeah.
can Kim do for you?
What can Kim do for me? This is good. I want to be
Instead of what can Brown do for you, because that's
What can
behind her
Brown-
now.
can
What
Brown-
can Kim and I
what
do
can-
for you?
That's right. It was what can Brown do
What
for
can
you?
Brown do for you?
I
Yep.
love that. I love it. Oh gosh. You know, when I got laid off from that telecommunications company, I had just gotten married. We had
Oh my gosh.
just
Now I
just
feel bad.
we had just bought our first home, and my wife was pregnant with our first child. And it was August of 2001, a month before September 11th, 2001. And at that point, you know, I hadn't thought about going back to healthcare. I wanted to try my next part of my life, but you know, when push comes to shove, and you got to go out and get a job, and it's not a bad thing. You fall back on what you know, and I knew healthcare. So I ended up working for the Valley Hospital in Ridgewood, New Jersey. I was there for 10 years. Best 10 years of my professional life. 5 years I worked as the manager in the for materials management in the same day surgery center. And then similar to like in Hackensack, where I got the call from the director of the OR saying you want to be the first owner, I was able to, there was an opening in strategic planning and business development. And I moved over there. Again, that's when I got rid of the scrubs and put the jacket and tie back on. And I was responsible for feasibility studies, you know, for thinking about a new program, establish the need. First one I worked on was the Women's Heart Health Program. And now it's doing fantastic for our patients now. And then, you know, the president asked me to get involved in patient experience and build it up. And so that's where my career shifted. I ended up in patient experience and patient relations, where the patient and the family really need to be at the heart of decisions. And we're getting to the point where I was considering, you know, maybe not sticking with it. But I ended up being there for 10 years. And then my boss there was recruited to be the executive director of patient experience at New York Presbyterian.
Drew, when you were doing that,
Yeah.
so you were in charge of the patient advocate.
Basically, we had 2 departments. We had the patient advocate department, and I was patient experience. So patient experience is more like the pre, you know, leading up to all the, you know, and then something is bound to happen, and then it's the patient advocate piece.
Right.
So
The reason I bring that up is I dealt with patient advocates a lot with the care of my mom, which I've talked about a lot on the show.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm shocked at the number of people who don't know that there are those 2 departments in every hospital. They're required.
And we work together.
Experience.
We certainly work together, but the way I differentiate it is the patient experience is the preemptive piece, the proactive piece,
the policy
and
piece.
Well, not necessarily. It's more the patient experience piece is really how do you enhance the experience? And that could be communication. That can be the understanding of the plan of care. That could be
Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me try to conceptualize it a little better, just for me and for the viewers that I know are going to struggle with this. Patient experience is more about the overall, Whereas the
Yes.
patient advocate is about a specific case at a specific time.
Right, and it's more and I see that as more reactive. You have all the
Mhm.
policies
Okay.
in place, but you, as great as your patient experience can be, the human beings are involved, and in an average 3-day length of stay, a patient encounters 200 different employees at the hospital, and any one of those 200 can make or break the stay. So you may have everything leading up, all 199 touch points, wonderful. It could be that one at the end that leads you to complain, which means that's when you go to the patient advocate. And this happened to me, and what are you going to do about it? And so that's like kind of like the differentiating feature. But I saw it as a big picture. The better we do proactively, the fewer complaints or
Maybe to break it down more, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The advocate would ensure that the patient is getting the absolute best care needed for their situation.
Absolutely.
The client experience is how the client actually feels, or the patient, not client, but how the patient actually feels, right down to the minute details of, like you said, do we
It's the
have the TV
overall
on?
experience.
Do we have the TV off? Do we allow, this is maybe far-fetched, do we allow family visitation, or
Yep.
how does the patient actually feel? So that's kind of, one's
Absolutely.
the care, one's how the patient feels.
Absolutely. And the way to really make it well-rounded is those two departments need to really work together. Because if
Yeah.
you have to be on the same page. But absolutely. And if you're just doing things for the right reason, for the benefit of the patient and the family, you can't go wrong. Until when I tell you, I ended up getting out of healthcare. I ended up at New York Presbyterian Hospital, which was fantastic
Oh, I love
experience.
that hospital. I've been there.
I was at Weill Cornell Medical Center for 3.5 years as the patient.
Wait, when were you there?
2012 to 2015 or something like that.
15 years before you were there, I was at New York Cornell University Hospital on First Avenue. I worked
Oh,
in
yeah?
the kidney dialysis center.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep,
Oh,
it
wow.
was a summer job helping out in the dialysis center.
So I could
And
interview
my
you.
mother,
You have a good
my
background.
mother was
Oh,
in
he
the
does.
burn unit at Cornell
Yes.
University, one of the best burn units in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I had a great experience there. It was and then I worked 1.5 years at Lower Manhattan Hospital. That's New York downtown. It used to be New York downtown, right by the trade
Well,
centers.
I'm
So
sorry to say this. If I get sick in New Jersey, I want to be worked on by someone who trained under Dr. House.
I love that show, man. I love that. So, but I mean, I definitely want to get to what Adam said, the reason why I left, because I ended up, I got a opportunity to be a director of patient experience and patient relations at Montefiore Nyack Hospital in Nyack, New York. And loved it there too. I mean, I learned so much from all my experiences. It's just over that 23-year period. I remember from probably about half that time, it was the patients, the families, the doctors, and the nurses and administration. Those 5 entities ran the hospital with the patients and families in the focus, the center of the care. And I know it didn't happen overnight. Gradually, it shifted. An analogy I told Adam is, when I first started in my career, it was like the patients and families had a very strong magnet right by the bedside, and the other magnet was with the caregivers. And so those magnets, it would draw the caregivers to the patient's bedside. And that's where the effective communication and the care and the empathy happen, right? Over the years, the more the government got involved, the more powerful that the pharmaceutical companies got, and the more powerful the insurance companies got. Those 3 entities, to me, took the magnet away from the patients and families, and now drawing the caregivers away from the bedside. And that's when medical errors started to increase, because it took people away from the bedside and the people didn't communicate. You used to have one doctor being for that patient, and that one doctor would be like the air traffic controller, and everything would go through that one doctor, all the specialists. Now you have like 17 doctors for one patient, and no one knows what's going on. So the reason why I left is the closer I got to the top in any of these hospitals, and it's not just the ones I work at, it just happens, I used to get in trouble for doing the right thing. Now, it's not a malicious intent on anybody's doing, but I realized I had an entrepreneurial mind. in really a healthcare system that really frowns upon entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship,
Absolutely. Right.
it needs to be structured within this. This is how you do it. And I finally found that I had my principles. I don't want to compromise that stuff.
Sure,
So I
hospitals
figured,
are more corporate structured than corporations are.
they are, but you know what? If I wanted to buy a pencil, you got to go all the way to the president to get approval for a pencil.
Mhm.
I have trouble saving them money.
And
They
the
don't want,
president
they,
and the president is in once every seventh Tuesday for 4 minutes.
I'll tell you, it's a shame. I mean, I love it. That's why I miss making an impact. But I found as the years went on, I was making less and less of a positive impact on the greater good, the greater
Mhm.
amount of people.
Mhm.
And I realized that the only way for me to really impact people in a positive way, a large quantity of people, would be to leave, own my own company, and do the things, do the right thing.
The
And
right things, yes.
yeah,
And you know, Drew, you have a phenomenal story because you followed your heart. And a lot of people don't do that. They stay within that structure, they stay within the box, and knowing in their heart they're not doing the best that they could possibly be doing. And
right.
you are able to do that. So I want to hear more about how you transitioned and found what you're currently doing.
Oh, absolutely. This was fun because so I left healthcare in October of 2018. That was right when after my 50th birthday. But at that time, I threw myself my own 50th birthday. Okay. It's probably the best time of my life because I invited friends from middle school, high school, college, the town, the parents of my kids' friends. I had my family there, my dad and my mom and my sisters. And it was the best. So I was on like cloud nine of my 50 years of my life. Little did I know that things were going to go crazy. Now, the one thing that was already a challenge, and I was going through a divorce. Okay. And so my divorce was final in April of 2018. But by the time October came, I had that closure piece. So I was at peace with that. Right. And so October 29th, only about October 6th is my birthday. You're talking about 23 days. One of my kids had had an emotional kind of breakdown. We had to take care of him. I'm not going to get into details of that because I get choked up. Anyway, that happened. And right around the same time, my father unexpectedly passed away, got sick. He was 3 weeks in the ICU. And so, yeah, I had and you're still dealing with post-divorce. That
Right.
never goes away. So I had this uncanny knack of, instead of picking one of the top 5 life stressors to happen at once, I ended up with like 3 at the same time. Remember what I told you when I got laid off initially? It was married, a home, pregnant
Having a
wife,
kid.
job
Yep.
loss. I mean, yeah, and having a kid, right? Now I got my kid going through tough parts of my life. My father passes away, got the divorce. But you know what? I really believe in, and there's a great quote that's life, part of life is falling down, but living is getting up, something like that. But that's the point. I mean, I get knocked down so many times where I could have just done, I'm out. But again, I always think of my kids. If I give up, that's what I'm teaching them. So you have to go through the grieving process, and I go through multiple grieving processes because I'm doing the 3 of the big stresses all at the same time. I realized that I remember one of the last times I talked to my dad, not knowing it was, he said to me, and he was like one of those man of few words. His emotions were inside, so he was a hugger and a kisser for his kids. But when my dad spoke, it was like the E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. My dad never really gave advice. Yeah, and I remember he came to me, he said, Adrian, I want to tell you I'm proud of you. I'm like, you are? He said, I don't know how you're doing it with you're out of the healthcare field. You want to start something new. You're raising 3 kids. You're going through a divorce. I don't know how you do it. And I want to let you know, my dad was always he was an IBMer, IBM 35 years, and then Pearson Education for 15. So he was stick with 9 to 5, boom. And so even when I went to psychology, he goes, why can't you go make money? I said, well, I want to help people. He goes, you can help people and make money too, you know? So fast forward,
Like my dad.
yeah, it's like, but I always wanted to own my own company, but I never did it. I never went outside of my comfort zone. I followed that 9 to 5, work for somebody kind of thing. And then the last thing I remember him saying to me, because I obviously I didn't know it was one of the last times I'd see him, he said, if you want to start your own company, whatever you want to do, you know your mother and I will support you. And I think I lost 20 pounds after hearing that. I mean, I was like, thanks, Dad. And I hug and a kiss and then so you end up fast forwarding, you know, he passed away January 13th of 2019. It was probably about a month later, I was ready to start looking. So I registered my LLC, Profit Compassion. I was going to do
Love
healthcare
that.
consulting.
Love
Yeah, I mean, it meant something to me because you can profit emotionally from compassion. And I was going to start my own healthcare consulting company based on effective communication. And I got a call from a company out of the blue called Career Transitions. And they saw on my LinkedIn that I had put an end date for my healthcare. So they figured 50-year-old guy, 23 years, maybe he's ready for a change. And they asked, are you looking to buy a company? I said, well, I do want to start my own healthcare consulting. They said, how about a franchise? And I said, I don't want to have a Burger King or a McDonald's. And she laughed. I'm like, what's so funny? She goes, there's a plethora of service-based franchises across North America. So I listened, and they hooked me up with a gentleman named Brian Frazier. He's out in Ohio. He's the best franchise advisor I have ever, and he just called me the other day just to see how I was doing. Now, this is somebody could have just forgotten me, but it's been 2 years since I owned the franchise. Anyway, he and I talked it was probably over like 9 hours worth of talk over 6 months, just so I could have a 20-point list of what I must have to have a franchise. And then I gave him that list, told him what I wanted, if I'm going to invest my life in this. And he came back with 14 different franchises across North America, all in different industries, different roles. And he wanted me to narrow it down to 5. So I had to do as much research as I can, narrowed it down to 5, Schooley Mitchell being one, submitted those 5, and he would set up weekly calls with a C-suite from those companies where they'd be interviewing me, am I right for their brand? And I'm interviewing them, are you right for my life and my money, you know? Schooley Mitchell's the only one that met all of those. And you know what? Ever happened to you where you interview for a job, it sounds great, then you get the job offer and you start day one and you're like, is this actually the job I entered? Because the job description is completely different.
Oh yeah.
They have exceeded everything. So I made the best move ever. And I'm just using a lot of stuff I learned from all different industries, for-profit, and I'm putting it into helping people save money, you know? And in the end, yeah, I do it for commercial, for businesses, but there are human beings running these businesses. So for me, I'm helping the individual, you know, in any way you look at it, you know? So I think I'm in the right place finally.
That is awesome. Absolutely.
I'm going to grandstand here. My business partner, who both of you know, Isa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has a poster that sits behind him on every Zoom meeting, and it's on his wall of his office. Mm-hmm. And Drew, everything you said comes from a quote from the movie Balboa.
Okay.
I'm going to read that quote right now, and you tell me if it's not exactly what you were trying to say.
Okay.
I can't do a Sylvester Stallone impersonation, so I'm going to read it as me. All right. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshines and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Wow. That's it. That's resiliency at its best, man. You just,
yep.
Yeah. I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Get up again. Yep. Nothing's going to keep me down, going.
Bingo. I was waiting for that. I was going to let that hang till one of the two of you said it.
Yeah.
But that's what it's about. And Kim's life is the same way. And my life is similar. I mean, you and I had an 1.5-hour conversation the other day.
Yeah.
And it was fun, you know, learning more about how we got where we are. Because you and I are almost the same age.
Yeah, right.
We were born just a few months apart.
You're a little older than I am. Huh?
Just a little
Just a
bit.
little
Yeah,
bit.
I'll get my Social Security just a couple of months before you will,
Yep.
but I'm hoping not to
Uh,
even need it. And so are you. You're hoping not to
yep.
need it either.
Yep,
You're growing your
that's
school
the goal.
and you're growing your nonprofit, which, by the way, I want to let you know, as USFA IO, our newest venture,
Hmm.
grows. There is stuff that we have that you discussed with Kim and I, and I'm
Hmm.
making it public
Absolutely.
now that you're
Yeah.
an extended member of the USFA.io family,
Right.
which means that you're a nonprofit, not
Hmm.
your Schooley Mitchell franchise, but
No,
your
but the
nonprofit
right,
But your
right.
is on our
nonprofit.
list of nonprofits we want to help support and grow because I think you have
Yep.
something beautiful there. Now, I'm a student of psychology and
Hmm.
sociology as well.
Hmm. Yeah. There we
Um,
go.
and we came out of it, and people are not going to realize this. I know that Drew is a conservative Republican, and Drew knows that I am a liberal Democrat.
Hmm.
And guess what, people? We're friends. We get along just
We had the best.
fine.
We had the best conversations about sharing ideas, and respecting each other's opinion. That's what
And
it's
we
Isn't
about.
that
agreed.
amazing?
We agreed on more than we disagreed about.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
that's why I say America's broken, and
That's
hopefully
because we
people
care
will get
about
more.
humans. It's
Right. It's
about
not
the
about
human
money. It's
being.
about
It's not.
humans. And
Yeah, I
that's,
mean,
like I said, one of the reasons you left the
yeah,
medical thing was it became more
yeah,
about corporate profit. And
yeah.
I'm going to tell the story now because it's appropriate
Mhm.
of when I found out that medicine had been destroyed by the rules and by profits.
Mhm.
So everyone knows, and I mentioned it 100 times, that I was the sole caregiver of my mother the last 2 years of her life. Well, she had dementia, she had lung cancer, she had kidney failure, and was on dialysis 3 times a week. She suffered the last year and a half of her life, but she managed to fall down one day, and I told Drew this story. So we grabbed her. We immediately called her primary care. He's like, take her to the hospital. Tell them I need a CAT scan done because it's going to happen faster than if I send you to a third-party imaging center. You'll get it done today, and we'll know right away if there's a problem. She had a nice little welt, a bump on her head. We get to the hospital, and the very first thing, before they even ask why are you here, let's get an IV in her. And the very first thing out of my mouth was, why? She's here for a CAT scan, and I know for a fact you don't need an IV to get a CAT scan. It's company policy, hospital policy. Nobody comes into the emergency room without an IV. You got to stick them, stick them, stick them. Why? Again, I feel like John Panette and his old, why do I need a service contract for my TV thing? But why do you need to? See, my mother had a condition called rolling veins, which means the top phlebotomist in the world would have to take
Right.
12 or 15 tries to get an IV in her, which is torturous. Now, she was out cold at this point, so it really didn't matter, but it would matter later. She'd feel it later, the bruising from all the sticks. And I had this fight for over an hour with the director of the ER at the time as to, I don't understand why. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll let you put the IV in, but if I see you bill for it, we're going to sue you in court. All of a sudden, he changed his tune a little bit. I'm like, if you want to put the IV in against her will, then you can't bill her for that because it's what you want, not what the patient needs.
Right.
Well, that got his attention real quick. I'm like, he goes, well, if we ever need to give her medication for what? She's here for a CAT scan and she's going home. We're not here to have her admitted. We're not here we're here because her primary care said to take her to the emergency room for a CAT scan. And running into that roadblock, and the patient advocate wouldn't even take our call. Okay, my call, because she was asleep. I was the only one awake. Taught me that hospitals have become more about billing than about patients.
Right. Yep.
And that is scary. It's very, very scary because think about this for just a moment. We're not doctors. Drew is the closest thing to a doctor in this group of three. And then I'm a professional caregiver because I've had a lot of experience doing it and worked in a couple of medical centers. And then Kim, you've been through a lot yourself. But none of
And
us
I
are
have my own
actual
stories about medical
stuff
care
just like that.
and billing.
But so just out of curiosity, they come back with a test result, say on an EKG, which for those who don't know is an electrocardiogram. It measures whether or not your heart in the past 24 hours has had any major irregularities. I do know my medicine, Drew. You're going to love this, okay? An EKG doesn't tell you what's happening right now. It tells you what has happened in the past 24 hours because it can see damage done by a heart irregularity. And it looks sort of like a little chart with lines that go up and down. Now, most of us don't know how to read an EKG properly. And anything dealing with the heart in a hospital, ka-ching, that is major billing, 6-digit figures to the insurance companies. What's to stop hospitals from telling people they need very minor procedures that won't damage anything from an EKG result that might be slightly iffy rather than emergency? As this profit over people continues, trust between patients and doctors breaks down. And I think that's what Drew was talking about earlier when he talked about the magnets. Not only does the care break down, but the trust of the patient to the doctor starts to break down too. See, my mom was on a federal assistance program, and so her medical bills were covered, but I did look at them. See, I want to know. I want to know why her 3-week stay costs more than anyone's home in my entire neighborhood. It was $631,000 for her 3-week stay in the hospital, 1 week of which was in ICU. And I'm like, how on earth is it 600? I could have put her in the Waldorf penthouse for 1/3 of that for 3 months, not 1 week, not 3 weeks. So how is it that expensive? And then I found out because I looked at the bill. She was given an 800 milligram ibuprofen, which was $1,300 for one pill. And things like that. I won't even get into some of it because some of it is infuriating. So I won't get in. I know Drew has seen these bills. He knows what I'm talking about. So I've lost a lot of faith. I love my doctor. I hunted. I'm very careful about choosing my primary care physician. And I highly recommend people are careful about choosing theirs. When you choose a primary care physician, here are 3 rules to follow. And let's see if Drew agrees with these rules as a former administration person, because I didn't do administration. So, but rule number 1, find out what hospital your primary care physician is associated to. Because this way, if you have a major medical emergency, he can have some say in your care because he knows you better than anyone at the hospital will know you.
Right.
And you can choose what hospital you're going to. Unless you're in a major trauma situation, ambulances are required to take you to your hospital of choice within a 30-mile range of where you're being picked up. I see you nodding. I love that. I study. I really do. I read. People don't think I read. I'm online all day on Zoom meetings, and I'm selling, and I'm servicing, and I'm negotiating. I spend no less than 3 hours every day reading, every single day, 7 days a week. So that's why Kim calls me the brains behind this thing, is I absorb knowledge all the time. So rule number 1, find out what hospital your primary care physician is associated with. Make sure you like that hospital. If not, you may want to choose a different primary care physician. But if the two meld well, that's great. Next thing you want to make sure of with your primary care physician, okay, is that they're not constantly overbooked, that you're able to get an appointment in a reasonable amount of time. Some primary care physicians, you have to wait more than a week to see them, no matter how severe what's going on with you is, or they'll just send you to an emergency room. And just sending you to an emergency room, depending on your insurance, can cost you an arm and a leg, literally as well as figuratively. Emergency rooms are infamous for getting things wrong because it's a very hectic area. They're the worst area in a hospital. The surgery centers, the rooms that Drew worked in are actually incredibly well organized. The emergency room is pure chaos. And anyone who's an emergency room director is an organizer of pure chaos, and they're really good at it. They have to be really good at organizing chaos, because how do you prioritize? Person A is having a heart attack, person B has a knife sticking in their skull. Who do you treat first? See, you can't even give an answer. Nobody said a word.
Well, you hope
Crickets
not
start
to have to
chirping.
make that decision.
Right, but in trauma,
if you run properly, you don't have to make that decision.
right, but in trauma centers, this type of thing happens all the time, especially in places like Bellevue, New York, which is the biggest trauma center in New York City. People may not know that. They think of it as one of the crazy houses. Yeah, but Bellevue is also the biggest and most expansive trauma center in all of Manhattan. And I happen to have done an internship there many, 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 many years ago. We're talking in the early 80s that I did an internship there for 6 months for something I was working on. But in any case, the fact is, you also want to see, like I said, you want to be able to get in to see your doctor within 3 days, no more than that, because most of your illnesses will probably be gone in 3 days anyway. But if it's something that really needs a doctor's attention and you wait more than 3 days, it could be life damaging.
Yep.
Okay. So that's number two. And the third and final rule is pay attention to your medical insurance. Know what your policy covers and doesn't. Know what your deductibles are and what they apply to. Hidden and surprise billing, despite the new laws that prevent some of it, and it prevents like 2% of it, to be honest with you. But surprise billing is the number one way people get into trouble in patients get into trouble in medicine. Those three things, everything else can be worked out along the way, but those three things you got to plan for in advance. And I don't know if Drew agrees or not. He may have something else in the top three, but those are my
Yeah,
personal top three.
I've got some other stuff, but in addition to that,
But
but I'm
those,
not doing that. I'm not doing that anymore.
no,
So
you're not. Let's talk about what you are
Yep,
doing.
let's talk
Let's
about
get
your
back into
business.
Schooley Mitchell.
And I want to find out what's the normal process when you are dealing with a company and you have such a valuable service that you can offer somebody. Take me through the relationship with one of your clients from beginning
absolutely,
to
absolutely. So,
ongoing.
it all begins with building a relationship, because I know trust is the foundation of any kind of relationship, whether it's business or professional. So once we establish that relationship and they feel they can trust me and comfortable with what we have to offer, it all begins with the terms of service. We do 36-month consulting, where it is active consulting. We continually will comb the market and make sure that the vendors are charging our clients exactly what we negotiate for. We're not a one and done and go away after we say do this. We make these recommendations. Our clients choose whatever recommendation they want, and we implement. So the way it starts, we start with this 36-month agreement. Once that's signed off, the client will check off which cost categories they would like us to work on for them.
So
And
it's
so
the client that tells you,
client
look at
tells us,
my shipping, telecommunications,
yeah,
and
yeah,
inventory.
yeah. Because I mean, initially, I do a complimentary conversation consulting with them.
Mhm.
I'll understand what industry they're in, their processes, how they do things, how they get paid. Do they ship stuff? Do you spend this much per month for your utilities? I'm basically doing a discovery call to start. At that point, and this is all complimentary, at that point, I will say, well, based on what you're telling me and where your expenses are, I recommend that we can help you with, and I will mention the cost categories. Then it's up to them to check off what they want. As soon as we have that information, and point of contact form, so we know who to contact within that company to get the invoices and whatnot, they also sign a letter of authorization to authorize us to speak on their behalf to their vendors.
Right.
Once we have that, I send that up to corporate office up in Schooley Mitchell's headquarters, and client relations team schedules their own discovery call with my client. Okay. So we like to have our client relations. So we're building that relationship, and I'm always in constant contact with the client relations team. Client relations team, they do the onboarding, they do the collection of all the invoices, the contracts. We love to have online access to our clients' accounts. We don't look at banking information. The reason why online access helps is we also comb for billing errors. We were able to look in the past at these, and if the initial agreement says you're paying $20 a month for plan A, and you've been charged $25 a month for plan A for the last 36 months, we'll get a rebate or refund from the vendor for them. So we look backwards and forwards. From the point that our client relations team gathers all the documents, and the more detailed, the better, because then more of the information we have, the more we can save for you. Once they have that in the file and they choose they assign an analyst, it takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks for our expense analysts to do the audit. And what that means is contacting the incumbent provider and contacting 2 vetted preferred vendors and getting apples to apples comparisons. And with the incumbent, we're asking for a re-rate. Same stuff you're doing, we want lower costs. 4 to 6 weeks, we come back. The expense analyst calls me and says, "Hey, Drew, we have the value report ready for customer A. let's have a call. So I have a call and we review the value report. And that value report will show what the current configuration is for whatever cost category it's for, and what we did, what the proposed configurations are, who we contacted, and we even break down every line item about how the savings would come in. And once I'm okay with that, I contact the client and say, we'd like to have, I usually go in person, but COVID now is phone call. Either way, we book a time, like 30 minutes for me to sit down with the client. And I always have the analysts, expense analysts who did the heavy lifting on the phone call with me. And so any kind of technical questions don't have to be deferred, till later. And once that discussion happens and the client understands the 3 recommendations, it's up to our client. It's their choice. We call it go or no go. They can say, Drew, I don't like any of those 3. Keep working for me. There's no cost for that. For the most part, they're going to make a selection of the 3. 80% of our clients stick with their incumbent. They will say, I love the service. I don't like switching. I'll leave some money on the table, but I want you to just implement the re-rate. So they'll check that off and we'll implement. And that's the only time the billing relation starts.
Okay.
And I wait to bill till after the implementation. I want my client to have invoice before Schooley Mitchell, invoice after Schooley Mitchell, because the process doesn't change. They're still getting their invoices from their vendor. And they can see, oh wow, 200 a month optimum, 100 a month optimum. I have $100 extra sitting in my budget per month.
Right.
And we just bill quarterly, but we don't just bill. We do post audits every quarter where we're looking at the most recent 3 invoices, and it's all based on actuals. We'll have a baseline cost from those 3 invoices when we first met the client, and that's how we establish the baseline and the savings. And that's basically it. But I'm constantly in contact with my clients, and I'm a one point of contact. So if they get the letter from Optimum that says your promotional pricing is ending in 3 weeks and it's going to double, they don't have to call Optimum. They say, Drew, I got this letter. I say, send it to me. I get it to head office. Head office calls the contact over at Optimum. So you're not going to raise their rates. We want the same promotional pricing we had. Boom, done. And that's really how it works.
What a valuable service. But not only do you come in and make these recommendations, in my mind, I'm thinking you've put all of these vendors on notice that their bills are being looked at. So they better be accurate. They better be right. They better be getting at best industry standards.
Right.
But yet you stay with them for a whole 3 years, and that you're
Absolutely.
constantly looking at this. So it's a no-brainer. Companies need to have a relationship with you to save money. And I would imagine that, do you know the percentage of companies that you can save them money? Have you ever gone into a company and said, you know what, you're at optimal pricing with all of your vendors?
It depends, because we have 8 cost categories. So for one, there is no business that is optimal on all 8 cost categories. Let's put it that way. So I have a chiropractor as one of my clients, and we are saving him money on his telecom, but he's optimized with his credit card processing. It just so happens that the processor he uses, they're an ideal fit. When our analysts called that company, wonderful customer service. So we were able to say, not only are you getting the best pricing out there, because we're like a broker, we can talk to any of the processors, but their customer service was impeccable. You're in good shape. It ended up being a no savings value report. They don't get charged for that. And it's a way for the business owner to check that off and say, wow, at least I know for my credit card processing, I'm set. And basically it's a free audit, and they can put that on their shelf, check that off. So the answer is that everybody is overspending on something.
I would think.
And we can find that, for them. We'll find what they're not overspending on and what they are, and then we help them do something about it.
And most companies don't even know that this is something that's available to them, especially for no cost.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, have you found
Well,
that,
change that to no out-of-pocket cost, because there is a cost, but it doesn't get paid up front or out of pocket.
It's no out of pocket, but that's why I'm saying trust is so important, because when you have that it's too good to be true mentality, it's not. I say it's too true. It's too good not to be true, is what I say, because but it's real. It is what it is, and
How
you
about
know there
this?
are
It's too important to be ignored instead.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And a lot of business owners are hesitant to look at the increasing revenues and lower expenses at the same time. They think it's a big project.
yep,
Whereas we're behind the scenes. We're working for them. We're behind the scenes. We're not
right,
changing any of your processes. While you're working hard on your core business, increasing your revenue, more clients, and doing what you need to do, what your strength is, we're like in the background, just
mhm,
lowering your costs. So what does that do to your profits? It increases it. That's the easy formula of
y-
revenue
yep.
minus expenses. It's just,
Is there any individual industry in particular that you have targeted, or you feel that you see the most
yeah.
cost?
Yeah, I'd say for my preferences within my business, I dental practices I've been able to help, and I
Okay.
and I want to stick with something healthcare. And I love working with the dentists and their office staff, because they're a combination of the strength with empathy. They understand the business aspect, but they also understand what their patients' needs are. So I
Mhm.
want to help dental practices. The second area I want to help are law firms, for a
Okay.
variety of reasons. Again, the law firms, they understand the value of money. They also understand where, if they save the money, where to put it, where to invest in, because if they want to specialize in a certain part of law, I mean, the best thing is I can say to them, what do you want to spend on that you don't necessarily have that money in your budget? And if they say, I mean,
Okay.
I'm going back and forth, but the chiropractor, I remember doing this, and he said, well, actually, I need 3 exam tables. And I said, okay, how much is exam table? He's about $1,500 a piece.
Okay.
So we're able to save him $1,000 a month, right? So
Mhm.
that's almost the entire one of the 3 exam tables. But
Or
that's
three
the
months
best
equals
way.
2 tables. That's the best way to look at it. Three
Yeah,
months equals 2 tables.
exactly. So that's why I say that the data tells a story. I'm not just going to say, oh, we could save you $1,000. Well, what does that mean to them,
Right.
right? What does that
Right.
mean? They can either reinvest it in their most important asset, which are their people, right? Or they can build the infrastructure to give their most important asset the tools that they need to work at the top of their license, or they can reinvest it in something else,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's their
Sure,
money, so
sure, that makes good sense.
yeah. But I mean, I want to help anybody, but I'm not going to go a million different places. But law firms and dental practices are number one, but I also want to help nonprofits.
And what about size of company?
Um, you know, I'll say that realistically, any size is okay. I mean, even if it's one employee, because even if I can only save them 28%, not only, but 28% on something, it's not going to be a lot of money, but I did something for them and they become a good referral source.
Mhm.
As far as the optimal client, um, any business that spends $750 or more per month on their telecom, right? Any business that spends 20,000 or that takes in $20,000 or more per month via credit card.
Okay.
That's great. Anybody who ships $200 a month on shipping stuff out, or $200 a month on their waste removal, or $750 a month on their utilities. Those are what I call soft qualifiers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess if you equate that to the number of employees, probably about 4 employees or more are probably within that soft qualifier, I would say.
Right.
That makes good sense.
And
Yeah.
how do you, as a business owner, find your clients?
In the beginning, and Schooley Mitchell really suggested some good guidelines, is first look at your community vendors, the ones you have spent your money on and your time on, and who you trust and who trust you. Go to them first. So the first bulk of my clients were people I've dealt with. Again, that trust I've dealt with for my whole life. That gives you sometimes, though, a soft sense of security, because it seems so easy, you know. But as you kind of dry out of those community vendors, you need to look elsewhere.
Of course.
I'm very much into networking in 3 different ways. I'm in a BNI, business networking.
Mhm.
BNI, I'm with Primary Connections out of River Edge, the best 50 people you'll ever meet. So that's who I work with for referrals. Then if I want to network and increase, I call it increase my denominator, because if my close rate, that's what the term, the industry term
Right.
is. But I
Yep.
mean, if it's about 34%, which I'm told is pretty good. But if you're only seeing 3 people, you get 1. So I need to meet more people, meet the right people. So that's my networking. I do a lot of
Uh-huh.
networking.
Hmm.
What I've been looking for more recently are business to business lead generation groups, where they have that giver's gain mentality, but it's
Yep.
business to business.
Hmm.
And just introduce us to your top referral source.
Hmm.
All right, Drew, let me
Doesn't
ask you, what is your social media presence like? I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I have to get better at the being consistent and putting stuff on. But I do have a LinkedIn business page. I have a Facebook business page, a Twitter business page, Instagram business page. I also just had Schooley Mitchell create a YouTube channel for me.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to I'm interviewing my referral sources who own businesses. I want to promote them. I don't charge. That's complimentary. This is part of what Schooley Mitchell does. We believe in the giver's gain mentality.
Nice.
So I want to interview the 2 of you, probably individually, because it'll be all about you and and you as a person and your company. And then I haven't really promoted the channel yet, although I'm told I better do it, because the content there is fantastic. And I think I'm going to market it as each individual person. So I'm going to go back to the first person I interviewed in February of this year,
Hmm.
and her name is Ellen. She's awesome in marketing, and I think I'll just like extract part of the video and put that all out there with a link back to the YouTube channel. So that way I'll still get exposure and subscriptions, but I'm promoting her company. Then I'll go to the next person and all that.
Exactly.
I wanna
That will
make
be
Drew an
great.
offer, and I think Kim's going to agree to this. On behalf of Adam and Kim and cruising into a better financial future, as well as on behalf of USFA.io, which was launching before the end of June, um, we'd like to make you a promo video that you can throw up on all your social media.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yep.
We
Yep.
want to
Wow.
make you a promo video. You have to
Thank
let
you.
us know what the parameters are. In other words,
Okay.
Schooley Mitchell has rules, all franchises
Yeah,
do, what
absolutely.
can and can't be in the video. We'll send you a perspective script for what will be said by the voice in the video.
Okay.
Um, and we'll talk about, Drew and how he can save your company money.
Wow. All
So
right.
it'll be a 30-second spot because,
Mhm.
Instagram and others have limits on how long your videos can be.
Right.
Kim, are you on board with this?
I am totally on board with it.
And how
I
about
love
this?
doing this.
How about this, Drew? At the end of the video, at the end of the promo video, we'll
Yeah.
put a form up there for you that'll redirect to your email. I have your email.
Yeah.
So if people want to consult you about what they just saw in the video, they'll be able
Yeah.
to fill out the form and immediately be able to get contact from you.
Oh my God, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Yep, and
Awesome.
we're gonna charge you a wink. So if you can wink one eye, either one. There you go. All right,
We
you
got
paid
it.
for it.
Paid
Kim
in
and I
full.
Kim and I'll design it. You're gonna get
Thank
an
you.
email from me asking for just a simple topic sentence
Mhm.
about what you do, and we won't mention the name Schooley Mitchell in the video. We'll mention
Mhm.
you, but
Okay.
what you do, and then 3 keywords.
Okay.
All I want is a topic sentence about what you do and 3 keywords. Email that to me. Kim
Mhm.
and I'll plug it into our central brain unit, our CPU unit that we use, and
Okay.
we'll get whatever it spits out and we'll send it to you to edit if you want to edit it from what we did. And
That's
that'll
great.
become the script that'll be read by our artificial voice in this promo video. And leave the
Wow.
leave the pictures, the backgrounds, leave that to us. We'll find
Yep.
those. No problem.
Okay.
We'll
No,
pick it
that's
out.
All
wow.
right. So
Thank you, God.
that's the way we want to help you because you gave us 2 hours of your time today.
I
We
appreciate that,
this is
guys.
going to be a two-part episode, but it's our welcome back. I mean, we've been gone for a month due to all kinds of personal stuff that happened with me and then Kim and then me again.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
So, you're our first guest back, and we're going to do what we did with Kiana Scott. By the way, for those of you who love Kiana Scott, today is her birthday.
Happy
Oh,
birthday,
awesome.
Kiana.
Yep.
Yes, we'll wish Kiana a
Today
very
is
happy
her birthday. I wished it to her at 12:01 a.m. last night. But anyway, getting back to Drew, we're going to do this promo video for you. We're not even going to mention our company in it. It's all about you. It's a
Yep.
free promotional item that we're going to do for you. And then if you see results from it, just come back and let us know,
Sure.
because we're going to use
absolutely.
you as a beta tester for our
Okay.
new service.
Sounds
Kim?
great. Thank you.
Sound good to you, Kim? I think
It's
we can have a
awesome.
lot of
I
fun.
can't
think we
wait.
can have a lot of fun doing that.
I
Yeah,
can't
that'd be
wait.
fun.
And Drew, let me ask, how do people get in touch with you?
You can give me a call at 201-857-3589. You can email me at Drew, D-R-E-W, Deraney, D-E-R-A-N-E-Y, at schooleymitchell.com. And
That's
those are
Schooley with a
probably,
K, correct?
yeah, SCHOOLEY,
There you go.
MITCHELL.
Which
You
is
can
why
find
I
me
said
on
what I
LinkedIn.
said.
The wise guy, yeah. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I'll respond, reply.
Okay, awesome. And my brains behind this whole operation, Adam, will make sure we get your contact information on our
Great.
channel.
Right
Wonderful.
about there in the box below my finger. It will
Looks
all
good.
be there.
Perfect.
I will email you to get you to put it in print so I can make sure I get everything right. But I did write down most of what you said.
Absolutely.
And what I can promise you is that within a week we'll have but just get me that topic sentence and those
Mhm.
3 keywords right away. But
Right.
within a week, maybe even by Monday, we might have the whole video ready for you. And it'll be a
Wow.
professional video that it'll look like you went to one of those professional videographers to make you a 30-second commercial.
There you go. All right.
Okay, that's how
great.
we do it. We want to show you what we can do for people so that while we're recommending you, you can also recommend us.
Oh, absolutely. I'll definitely recommend you guys. Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. See that? You networked as a guest.
Drew, it's been a pleasure having you on. I've
Thank you,
learned
Kim.
so much, and you are definitely a value to businesses. And I look forward to being able to refer you.
Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely.
I
And I
appreciate
look
it.
forward to putting this up there for all of our business owners in our
I look
audience.
I look forward
you.
to the lives that will be touched, not by Schooley Mitchell Drew, but by his nonprofit as he's able to finally grow it.
Mhm.
It's been there and he hasn't been able to grow it a lot. And
Right.
we plan to help a lot in the growth of that, because I know that if you could do that full-time and Schooley Mitchell part-time, you would.
I just want to help, guys. I
Yep.
just want to help. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
that's exactly what the philosophy of USFA.io is. We answer our phones with our name and how can we help?
Yes, that's going to help. Yeah.
Yep. And that's what it's all about. We have 57 softwares to help businesses grow. So, and that's growing every day. We had 52 a week ago. We're at 57 now. We'll be at 60 by the end of this week.
All right.
We're a warehouse for things that help businesses grow. And that's why I want to give you for free something to help your business grow.
No, thank you, Adam. Thanks, Kim.
You're
Appreciate
quite welcome, Drew.
Ah.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And anything else, Adam? How can people get in touch with us?
Let's see. Apache smoke signal. No, that's not going to work. I try to think of new things all the time. You know what? It's better to just send us an email. And if you want to send us an email, it's going to be to questions@cruisingintoabetterfinancialfuture.com. I repeat, questions, the word, not a question mark in the letter S. Questions@cruisingintoabetterfinancialfuture.com. And either Kim or
cruisin',
I, yep, cruising with a Z.
C-R-U-Z-I-N.
The Zorro
Not
Z.
with a K, Adam.
Not with a K.
But that would be Kruken, man. Speaking of man, it's funny. Here's my funny point for the end of the show for today. I do why me, why worry? I'll do this one. Drew, do you realize when we were born, right? The end of sentences when two guys would talk to each other always ended with man.
True.
Hey, where you going, man?
Where you go, man?
Can you give me a lift, man? And then by the time we were teenagers, man was gone.
Oh,
It became
yeah.
dude.
Dude is, yep.
We went from
Dude.
men to dudes.
Do your
What's
kids
up?
ever call you dude, Drew? My kids will say, "Hey, dude." I'm like, No. I'm mom. I'm not dude.
Right, but just think
I
about
think
this
they have
one.
another name for it. I'm not sure. I
Oh,
can't, probably something I can't
wait.
say.
It gets worse. So wait a minute. We went from man, we devolved to dude,
Right.
right? But dude was kind of short lived. It was great in the middle 80s, but then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it died out and became dog.
Yeah,
yeah,
I've never
I remember.
understood that one. Yep.
Yeah, I never quite understood it either, but I'll thank Randy Jackson for making it way too popular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we went from man to dog. Talk about devolving, man to dude to dog. But dog was incredibly short lived. It ran itself out very quickly. And still to today, it's become bro. So we went
Yeah.
from man to bro. If
Yep.
you think about that's how I
Mhm.
measure accents in the words of like what you call that two pieces of bread with meat and cheese in the middle. I call it a sandwich. Other people call it a sub, some a hoagie, and so depends
Yeah.
on where you're
Right.
located, what you
Right.
call
Right.
those things.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny where you're located. These four things are really important. If you're in Detroit, it's still dog. If you're in California, it's still dude. If you're in New York, it's totally bro.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
they still say man. If you go to Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, or anywhere in the lower South, and there's good reason for that. They're a little behind the rest of us, but the
Yeah.
fact is these things are regional at this point, and I just
Oh,
find
I got another one for you.
go ahead.
I was called a goat. You know, goat is?
Yes,
Because
I
we're talking
do.
about I'm a big Mets fan, so Jacob deGrom is GOAT, greatest
Oh,
greatest of
of
all
all
time.
Time. Yep.
And I'm thinking, I don't want to be called the GOAT, but I'm like,
That
oh,
is
that's
a
what that stands
compliment.
for. I will
Here's
take
the
that
funny
then.
part. It
That
stands
was a
for
compliment.
that. Right. It stands for that now. But for
Uh-huh.
many years, the goat was the guy who got taken advantage
Well,
of.
that's the thing, yeah. The GOAT was the person who lost the game for you. Now they're the greatest of all time.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
Crazy.
What's his
So,
name? Joe Torre
well,
was the goat more times than I could count as a former Mets fan myself.
I know. Yeah. Wins
But
with the
now it's the
Yankees.
greatest of all time. Yeah, they keep changing what the letters mean. It's
I
amazing.
know. It's
It
crazy.
is amazing. But yeah, man, dude, dog, bro.
yep.
Bro.
You have a think about it this way too. You could think about it in a different term. We started out with drawing pictures of things to give messages on cave walls, right?
Mm-hmm. Now
So
we
we
got
drew
emojis.
pictures. Yeah, we've come all the way back to that with
Yep.
emojis.
Yeah,
And
we
if
got
you look at the
emojis.
steps we took in
Exactly.
between, we
Yep.
went from that to the written word to the telephone to the telegraph to the telephone to computers and email to text messaging to everything's written with 4 emojis and no words again. So we're back to
Yep.
hieroglyphics.
Now we're back to hieroglyphics. Yeah.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Exactly.
Amazing how circular life can be.
I know.
Yep.
I know.
Well, Drew, thank
Very
you
good.
so much for your time. I know we've taken up a good portion of your day today, but
That's
again,
okay. I
such
appreciate
a
it.
value to our clients, or our audience. So thank you very
Being that
much.
being
Thank
that
you.
life is so hectic,
You're
I'm
welcome.
not going to say until next week. I'm going to say until next time.
Till next time.
Till
Yep.
next time, when
Don't
Kim and
put
I
more
help you,
pressure on yourself. It's time is good.
I couldn't put more pressure if I tried. But
I'm
until
sure.
next time, when Kim and I try to help you, Kim,
Cruise into a better financial future.
bingo,
Take care, everyone.
bingo. Have a great
All right,
week,
everybody.
everybody.
Take care.